Hello everyone, Turtleags here bringing you another AFK Journey video. So now that all the heroes have been released for this Chains of Eternity season, I figured that it would be a good time to go over all the most common standard arena teams out there that are viable. And the structure of this video will be as follows. First, I'm going to go over all the heroes that are currently being used in standard arena. And then second, we will go over formations for the most impactful heroes for standard arena, and then I will wrap things up with some final thoughts. So without further ado, let's begin. Alright, so now we are in the Resonating Hall, and I took some notes regarding all the viable heroes for Standard Arena that have been released since the launch of the game. Basically, at this point we've had 3 seasons. The first one being Song of Strife, second Waves of Intrigue, third being Chains of Eternity. Now, for PvP Standard Arena specifically, there are 4 heroes from Chains of Eternity, 4 heroes from Waves of Intrigue, 5 heroes from Song of Strife, and 8 heroes from Preseason that are seeing a lot of play in Standard Arena. That combined is 21 out of the 78 heroes that have been released to date. So about a quarter of the heroes released are seen a lot of play in Standard Arena. These heroes are as follows. So for just kind of going backwards in terms of time, for Chains of Eternity, the 4 heroes that are seeing the most play in Standard Arena are the twins, Cryonaia, Athalia, and Cyran. Okay, and honorable mentions are Volca, Lorsan, Fairmore, Shamira, and Cowan. Chains of Eternity this season was actually quite heavy in terms of heroes that are viable for PvP, both Standard Arena as well as Supreme Arena. Now, going back a season in the past, Waves of Intrigue, this was season number 2. The 4 heroes that are seeing the most play in Standard Arena are Dunlingr, Tasi, Bonnie, and Hugin. And I know some of you guys might be wondering what Hugin what? Yes, Hugin. I'll explain more in a moment. With honorable mentions, Harok, Sonia, and Lenya. Okay? So, and then going back a season in the past, Song of Strife, there's 5 heroes that are seeing a lot of play in Standard Arena. One is Phraesto, second one is Talene, third one is Lily May, fourth is Ulmus, fifth is Ludovic with honorable mention of Mikola. This is more like, lower in arena, standard arena rankings. Alright, and then for preseason, there are 8 heroes that are seeing a lot of play with 11 honorable mentions. So, the top 8 for preseason heroes, the ones that have stood the test of time, are Reinier, Scarlita, and I know Scarlita is kind of debatable, but I think with the release of Athalia, Athalia actually gave a boost to Celestials, their viability, thanks to also the twins. Also Silvina, Thoran, Odie, Satrana, and yes, Satrana has made a comeback in Standard Arena. She's used quite often in the upper Standard Arena teams. Damian and Hewynn. Okay, so those are the top 8 for preseason heroes for Standard Arena. I'm not talking Supreme Arena, I'm talking Standard Arena, with 11 honorable mentions: Smokey, Koko, Shakir, Brutus, Brian, Leica, Rowan, Vala, Entendre, Igor, and Niru. Okay, so before we dive into various team formations, I do want to briefly explain why 21 of the heroes that I have stated are so commonly used, why there are 19 honorable mentions, and so actually combine their 40 out of 78 available heroes. So basically half of the heroes available are viable in Standard Arena in one form or another. Yeah, and a quarter of the available heroes are Standard Arena worthy. You will see them often. Okay, let's go backwards, starting with Chains of Eternity. Why are the twins Cryonaia, Athalia, and Cyran so powerful in Standard Arena? So the first one here, actually let's just go ahead and go into Standard Arena. Alright, so first hero I want to talk about is the twins. Now, the twins, I've had viewers tell me in the past that they are not worth getting paragons for, but I believed it for a couple weeks, but then I kind of realized later that the twins are used quite commonly in Standard Arena, and the reason is because the twins, they offer like 5 or 6 different ways to they provide energy in 5 to 6 different ways, and they provide a ton of different buffs that are quite impactful. Just to give you an example, they can increase attack. I believe they can also increase haste, if I'm not mistaken, and they can haste, attack. And there might be other buffs as well. Anyways, they provide a ton of buffs and provide, I think, 3 different ways to, and provide energy for your party. And they heal. So very good. Cryonaia is one of the hypercarries introduced in Chains of Eternity. The reason why Cryonaia is so good is because it can basically solo the enemies with the right setup. So typically you would surround her with like Hugin or Rowan, with the twins, of course. I'll go ahead and add the twins here.
It's our turn to take.
Yeah, so usually you'll have her in the constellation. Yeah, so something like this. And then you can partner her up with like Lily May or Cyran or Bonnie, and then you'll typically add like a tank such as Phraesto. Yeah. So Cryonaia is quite good because what she does is once you get her ultimate up, she freezes the most of the enemies except 3. I think it becomes a 3v1, but Cryonaia can shield herself. She does a ton of damage, and she can basically freeze the enemies to death. It's kind of like Odie's poison, where you just immediately delete the enemy off the map. Cryonaia does that, and she is quite effective against really problematic PvP heroes such as Talene and Tasi, who can come back over and over, and Igor as well. Cryonaia has the ability to bypass those revivals and just freeze them out of existence. Okay, and then we have Athalia as well. We are in a situation right now where even whales cannot fully build all the heroes. Like for me, I'm probably one of the biggest whales in my server, and I'm still working on Athalia. It's just so expensive to get everyone paragoned enough to actually be viable in PvP. But if you have ever played the Pioneer server, you will find that one of the strongest teams in PvP, if you have access to all the heroes fully paragoned, would be something like this, where you have the twins, you have Athalia, you have Talene, and keep in mind Talene is also a celestial, right? Because with the twins, it incentivizes you to have only heroes of the same faction within the constellation. That way they get more energy and stuff. And then you would do something like a Dunlingr, because Dunlingr with his Spellbind mode is able, yeah, this mode right here, there's Spellbind and there's Cure Lock. With Spellbind mode, he basically turns off everyone's ultimates except the one who has the Clemency Chime. Sorry. Dunlingr is very good with Athalia because Athalia, the bulk of her damage is actually not from her ultimate. Like, yes, her ultimate hits like a truck, but she can also do quite a bit of non-ultimate damage in the same way that Odie can. So for this reason, Athalia and Dunlingr are a very powerful combination. Athalia is a very solid hypercarry. She is able to cheat death. She doesn't do as much damage when she's KO'd, you know, converting into the lance form, but even in her lance form, she is able to cause the enemies a lot of trouble. And then finally, the fourth suspect that you have to really watch out for, who's very meta defining, would be Cyran. And what is so nice about Cyran is that he's incredibly splashable. Why is Cyran so impactful in Standard Arena? It's because he, with his EX10, is able to turn off the enemies, basically silence the enemy's artifact spell, such as Confining Spell or Enlightening Spell, for 8 seconds when the battle starts. And this is quite impactful because, you think about how OP some of these artifact spells are, like the Confining Spell being able to imprison up to 3 enemies for a couple seconds periodically. Imagine you are in a scenario where you're running a Cyran, the opponent is not. You get your Confining Spell off, you're imprisoning 3 of their enemies while providing a lot of offensive pressure. That's how powerful Cyran is. And not to mention, typically how it goes is, once Cyran gets his ult off and he's, bringing everyone into the Dark Void, he does a lot of damage, and he's, not really imprisoning, but just like, he has the potential to do a ton of damage and also delete enemies in the same way Cryonaia does. Cyran's very powerful. So anyways, those are the 4 heroes that, if you are serious about Standard Arena, you should consider building from the Chains of Eternity season. Now, going backwards, there are 4 heroes from Waves of Intrigue that are very impactful. The first one being Dunlingr. Now, Dunlingr is a hero who's very impactful in Standard Arena, but who not a whole lot of people have fully built, myself included, because there's just so many Celestials and Hypogeans that you need a fully built for Dream Realm, them being the twins, Pesto, Talene, Harok, and Reinier. And if you are full free to play and have been playing since day 1 of release, you probably will only have those 5 heroes built, not really any stellar crystals or guild medals left over to build your Cryonaia, Athalia, and one other person. So anyways, the reason why Dunlingr is so impactful is because we are getting more and more heroes now, such as Athalia, who can function quite well without ultimates. And also we are getting a lot of hypercarries that are reliant on their ultimate, like specifically Cryonaia. And for this reason, being able to turn off that option is going to be quite good. Not to mention, there are more and more heroes released lately who start off with quite a bit of initial energy. Like an example would be Chimera, right? Chimera, she starts off with quite a bit of energy. Heck, even the new dimensional hero, Natsu, he starts off with like 700 initial energy. Or maybe it was, I'm sorry, it was the other one. It was this one, Lucy. Yeah, Lucy starts off with 700 initial energy. I think Natsu starts off with 500. another hero, Hugin, starts with, I think, 300. There are more and more heroes who are able to get their ultimate off very quick within the first, I think, 12 to 14 seconds. And so for this reason, having Dunlingr with his, spellbind mode, where he silences the enemies for the first, I want to say it's like 12 seconds or something with the Bell of Order. Dunlingr has quite the impact, and depending on the matchup, he can be quite oppressive. So Dunlingr, very powerful, one of the top 3 most future-proof heroes in the game that nobody builds. So Dunlingr, very good. The other very impactful hero is Tasi. Tasi is actually one of my most favorite heroes, and I'm probably one of the few people who really use her on my server for Standard Arena. The reason why Tasi is so good is because she actually is a very crucial component of an archetype that is stall based. She revives over and over again and puts enemies to sleep and can be quite oppressive. A lot of times once Tasi gets her ultimate off and puts enemies to sleep, you pretty much stabilize and pick up a couple KOs. So I really like Tasi as a hypercarry. I also really like Bonnie. Bonnie, she is such a powerful flex hero who does insane amounts of damage, is able to apply aging magic that will decrease the haste of the rearmost enemy, and that aging magic or decay can spread to other enemies, getting to a point where towards the middle and end of the match, the opponent is not getting their attack output, their damage output slows down because you're decreasing their haste so much, and this stacks over time. And then finally we have, actually really there's only 3 main ones. I put Hugin as another one because when you get to, like, let's say there's a new server, right, and you have Cyran, and I remember when I was playing my free-to-play account in the VN server, pretty much all the top players were running Cyran, and they would combo Cyran with Hugin. And the reason for that is because Hugin starts off with quite a bit of initial energy. It's at least 300 initial energy, and this is very good because Hugin will actually bait opposing Lily Mays to basically guarantee that your Cyran's ultimate will go off. And so for those kinds of teams, how it goes is if the opponent tries, brings a Lily May, Hugin baits the Lily May ultimate cancel, your Cyran's ultimate goes off, and you pretty much pick up all the KOs there. So that's why I would say I think Hugin is one of the most underestimated Standard Arena heroes that you have to really respect. Okay, so moving on to Song of Strife. So there's 5 heroes you really have to pay attention to, one being Phraesto. Now Phraesto is so incredibly important in Standard Arena because there's not really that many good tanks out there. There's really only 4. There's Phraesto, there's Ulmus, there's Thoran, and then to some extent Talene is being used as a tank now. For like really viable Standard Arena tanks. And not to mention the 2 most popular stages for Standard Arena, Arena 4 as well as Arena 3, have pretty much 2 lanes, right? Like for Arena 3, there's 2 lanes. Typically you'll have like Illusion Phraesto here and then main Phraesto here, or vice versa I should say. So this Pesto will come down this lane, this Pesto will come down this lane. Oh, sorry, Dunlingr is another one. So I guess there's 5 tanks that are super viable. Yes. And for Arena 4, there's also 2 plots of land as well. Not to mention, Phraesto, he provides buffs to the allies behind him. So for main Phraesto, he increases the energy recovery by 14%. Illusion Phraesto increases damage reduction by 14%. So very impactful. There's certain synergies with Phraesto, like for example Scarlita, where in Scarlita's case, this is not as impactful now, but back in the day, pre Chains of Eternity, you would have Scarlita behind main Phraesto. That way, as soon as Scarlita slammed down onto the field, she will immediately eat enemies off the map. If you didn't have main Phraesto, Scarlita would be kind of, easy pickings for the brief couple second window before she actually eats enemies. So Phraesto, very, very good. Not to mention with the presence of Bonnie, sometimes you need to pay attention to your formation, specifically who you put in the rearmost slot. Because you want someone who can bait the enemy Bonnie's aging magic so that your prime DPSs don't have their haste reduced. So usually I will put the Illusion Phraesto in the rearmost, and another way to kind of counter Lily May decay magic without heavily impacting your battle plan is the twins, because usually your Elijah will bait the Bonnie's aging magic, right? All right, and so another hero that you have to pay attention to for Song of Strife, from Song of Strife, will be Talene. Now Talene is very powerful because she does a lot of ultimate damage as well as revives repeatedly. And so for this, and she also applies a revival, a Pyre of Renewal on the frontmost ally, which usually the best example would be Tasi. And this is actually a very powerful core. In addition to Damian, these three heroes all have the ability to revive over and over again. To some extent, Athalia as well is a very good combo here, because Athalia, once she dies, goes into lance form and basically recurs again and again. Or actually, no, I think she just revives and then the lance stays and does damage. So, this is a very common archetype. Talene has enabled it. She's seen a lot of play in both Standard Arena and Supreme Arena. And she has some relevance in Dream Realm. Okay, so another hero that is very impactful is Lily May. And Lily May, the reason why she's so good is because she is the only hero who is able to cancel ultimates. I guess to some extent Dunlingr does that too, but Lily May, she cancels the first ultimate cast on the enemy side for free. It's a passive ability, and she also has frames of invincibility with her skill 1, making her very difficult to kill, and she also is able to do a ton of damage. So for this reason, Lily May is, you have to really respect her. Another hero to mention would be Ludovic. Ludovic is probably one of the top 3 most impactful, actually probably top 2 most impactful healers in Standard Arena, the other one being Damian. The reason for this is because we are in an environment now where if you are able to fill the healer role with just 1 hero slot instead of 2, that would be ideal. Yeah, actually, they would be top 3. So usually you will have, say, like Damian alone, or Ludovic with the twins, or like Damian with Hewynn. These are the 3 most common clusters of healers, if you will, that you will see in Standard Arena. Speaking of Ludovic in particular, he is probably the most reliable burst healer you will find that doesn't rely on his ultimate in order to sustain everyone by himself, the other one being Damian. Not to mention Ludovic also provides a good amount of damage output, and he also is a Graveborn. And so, you know, some people, what they will do is that, you know, they will put do something like this, where you have Bonnie and Ludovic within the twins constellation. They'll probably have like Cyran as a Hypercarry as well to combo with Bonnie, and then for the third slot or the final slot, they'll probably either put a Talene or a Phraesto, right? So this would be a very viable team, what I'm showing before you. Yeah, and then finally, noteworthy would be Ulmus. Now, I do have to admit, Ulmus is not seen as much play in Standard Arena as he is in Supreme Arena, mainly because Eironn, which is a very viable archetype that you would combo with Ulmus, gets easily countered by Dunlingr as well as Lily May. And so for this reason, you know, you aren't seeing Ulmus as much now in Standard Arena. However, he is a very good consideration, especially at the start of a brand new server where there are not as many Celestial Hypogeans seen play. All right, and then finally with the preseason, I know this video is getting really long, but I want to be comprehensive here. We have Reinier. Now, Reinier is more commonly used on offensive teams. However, if you still have to respect him, because Reinier, you know, he is a hero who even on defense can see a lot of play. I think before this season, one of my defensive formations that I ran was on Arena 4 with Reinier, where I basically had Reinier right here. I think I had Damian right here. This is called the Pioneer team. And then you would have Phraesto, you know, and you would have, say, like Lily May, and then for the final team, I think this was before Bonnie was released, you would have Tasi. So this was a very popular Pioneer Standard Arena team. And basically why this team is so potent is because if in order for the enemy to not split their team into two groups, they have to put at least one hero on this tile or this tile. So, you know, even Reinier on defense, a lot of times the enemies, they don't want to split their team, right? Because whoever gets placed over here gets easily KO'd by, like, say, Lily May or something like that. So for this reason, enemies will be like, you know, it sucks, but I have to put a hero here in order to keep all 5 heroes within the same plot of land. And so Reinier will dynamic balance, you know, either your Lily May or your Illusion Phraesto and weaken the enemy that's placed here. So Reinier is still very viable in Standard Arena. And then, oh, actually, I'm sorry, it wasn't Tasi, it was Scarlita. And Scarlita is actually the next hero that I want to talk about. So, I'm sorry, this was the actual OG Pioneer defense. It had its own name. It was quite popular. And so what you would do essentially was you would put the main Phraesto in front of Scarlita. You don't care if your Scarlita gets dynamic balance because she'll be in the air. And then main Phraesto in front of Scarlita so that she can yeet right away. Yeah, and you don't care if Phraesto gets dynamic balance because he's a chunky tank. You know, he'll survive. Okay. And then the other hero that is noteworthy is Silvina. Now, Silvina is quite nice because she can, you know, based on her formation, on offense can really apply a lot of pressure to pretty much whichever enemy that you want. Now, something of note is that for Arena 4 in particular, I think the tile that Lily May is on, I think it's Lily May, is untargetable by Silvina. So this is the reason why a lot of people run Arena 4 on defense, because if they are worried about opposing Silvinas, there is a way to guarantee that the hero placed wherever Lily May is placed right now, you place your glass cannon DPS there. That way the opposing Silvina cannot, like, no matter where she's placed over here, she cannot target that slot. Okay, but Silvina is very important to worry about, along with Thoran. So typically what you would do is you'll have Thoran forming a pact with Silvina. That way when she jumps to the enemy territory, the combination of Thoran's pact, which basically Thoran will take half of the damage that Silvina takes. That in combination with Silvina's shields from EX10 and EX15, Silvina will survive while she's harassing the enemy line. And then there is Odie. So Odie is noteworthy because even though Odie doesn't see a lot of play in the very high echelons, like top 20 of Arena, he is still very impactful in champions in general, because if you hide him behind, a very reliable tank along, you have a very reliable healer. So I saw this a lot on the VN server, the latest server, where you would basically run like a Thoran, a Smokey, and Odie. You would also have like a Koko, and you would basically turtle up. In the combination of Odie poison as well as Smokey's blue fog, it was very oppressive, and a lot of people would run this team on map 1. So it would look something like this. And then eventually what happens is, assuming there's like a stalemate going on, a couple enemies maybe like 3 enemies will have been poisoned by Odie, and then Smokey's blue fog will appear, and then all the enemies would die, essentially. They would all vaporize. So very powerful there. We already mentioned Damian and Hewynn. Damian and Hewynn in combination is quite powerful, because Damian is a very reliable healer who has an impact right from the start, and Hewynn is more for stabilizing. This healer combination has seen less play now in Chains of Eternity, just because Cryonaia and Athalia, they don't really care that much about Hewynn, because they apply so much offensive pressure so quickly. Hewynn just doesn't have time to stabilize. However, in a scenario where the meta in your server is slower, Damian and Hewynn are quite powerful. And typically what I would do in this situation is I would put Hewynn right here, because these 2 slots right here, particularly this one, is the safest slot. It's Eironn immune, so to speak, like when Eironn crowd controls. If you have like Hewynn here and a hero here, Eironn, to my understanding, doesn't end up crowd controlling everyone with his ultimate at the start of battle. So yeah, that's really noteworthy. Okay, so now that I've talked your head off with all the 21 most viable standard arena heroes, let's go ahead and go over the most powerful archetypes. And I'm going to start with Chains of Eternity, because this is, I think a lot of people are more interested in this. Let's start with Athalia. So from my experience in the Pioneer server, the latest Pioneer server, where every account had P4s, like you had P4s of every single hero, the most popular archetype that I personally saw that was incredibly difficult to deal with was actually this exact formation right here. I think the rank 1 and 2 players were running a flavor of this team comp. Essentially, the shell was a triple celestial team comp in the form of Athalia, Talene, and the twins. And from there, you could kind of build around this core. So as an example, you could do something like this. So you would do that. And then the 5th slot was incredibly splashable. You could go Cyran. This I didn't see as much of, but for me personally, I was running something like this. Very powerful. Or you could run Bonnie as another example. You could run Lily May. as another example.
Understood. I'll keep that in
Or
mind.
I've actually seen something like this where you would put Talene in the front, and then you would actually throw in a Scarlita here. And the reason being that, there's a lot of recursion in the form of, in the form of your Talene and Athalia, but you still kind of want to keep your Athalia alive. Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. I apologize. This is the team. This is the team. Very powerful. Very, very powerful. Because essentially, well, actually, if you do it that way, yeah, it was like this. It was kind of odd because typically you would think that you would want your Talene to cast her ultimate, but somehow this team was incredibly oppressive. Basically, you would do like a Dunlingr Athalia. Yeah, something like that. So yeah, that is one archetype right there. Now the other archetype is Cryonaia, and this is a bit different. Obviously, when you're running Cryonaia, you don't want to run Dunlingr.
Let me see your
I've actually seen Athalia with Cryonaia. So something like this. Let me see here. Yeah, so something like this would be quite powerful. I've seen this before. Alternatively, you could swap Talene with, say, like a Scarlita to keep everyone alive. I used to think that with Cryonaia, you needed to run, say, like a Rowan in order to get her ult off, but the Pioneer server actually proved me wrong. Sometimes you can just jam another hyper offense like Athalia, and you're with Scarlita, and this is why I said before, Scarlita has made a comeback ever since Athalia was released, because there is good reason for you to have Scarlita in the air, shielding Athalia and Cryonaia, providing them enough time for Cryonaia to get the ult off, and Cryonaia with Athalia in combination is very oppressive. Yes, but let's say you don't have Athalia built. Like in my case, I don't have Athalia built. So what I would probably do, and this is actually the team comp that I'm using personally on offense, and I can just show it to you right now. This is what I run on offense. I run Cryonaia on offense. Basically, how this team works is you have Illusion Pesto baiting the opposing Bonnie, right? The aging magic, and then you have the twins forming a constellation around your Cryonaia. Cryonaia is benefiting from the 14% energy recovery from main pesto. You have Rowan in the back here to provide an energy boost to allow Cryonaia to ult faster. And then for the 5th slot, it is incredibly flex. There's 3 candidates I would highly recommend for you. For me personally, I love having Lily May just because, in case you are in a mirror match, Lily May ult canceling will allow your Cryonaia to get her ult off, not the opponent's Hypercarry. So for me personally, I prefer Lily May on offense. However, there is a lot of merit. Like let's say you have a very well built Cyran. Cyran's also very good. My Cyran is 1 Paragon less than the other heroes that I have built, and so for this reason I opt for Lily May instead. But if I had Cyran fully built, I probably might put Cyran here instead of Lily May, or you could put Bonnie as well. Heck, you could even put Athalia if you have her fully built. Athalia would be quite powerful here. Athalia is surprisingly splashable. You just basically need either a sub DPS or, who can either supplement the damage of Cryonaia or, prevent the enemy from keeping your Cryonaia from doing what she wants. Okay, so and then I guess we can move on to Cyran. Cyran is probably the most splashable Hypercarry that you have to pay attention to. Typically for brand new servers, you see a ton of Cyrans just because Cyran is so oppressive with his ability to silence the enemy's artifact for 8 seconds. So the most common teams you will see with Cyran, usually it'll be in the form of Cyran, Bonnie, Ludovic. So and the twin. So you would, and a reliable tank. So it'll be something like this, where you have Ludovic and Bonnie within the same constellation. You have Cyran positioned such that he is not the rearmost, because you don't want the opposing Bonnie to cast aging magic on Cyran. You need to protect him. So some people, they will put Cyran right behind Ludovic. This is actually the most common formation, so it'll look exactly like this for Arena 3 and Arena 4, and then the final is very flex. So lately I've been seeing a lot of Talenes in the front, to apply some tanking as well as a lot of offensive pressure. This is actually more commonly seen in Arena 4. So with Arena 4, there isn't this wall here. Most enemies will converge like around the front, and this is where Talene will tank, buy some time, she'll come back, and this is very oppressive offensive formation. However, you can also be, do a little less damage but be more on tanking duty with this. The advantage to doing it this way, particularly on Arena 3, is you can have the option of Illusion Pesto here. You'll do something like this. You could do that to protect this lane, and then you'll do something like this. Yeah, or alternatively you could do the way I had before, something like this. This would be a very powerful team. Now, to a lesser extent, there is a recursion archetype that involves Talene and Tasi. And at this point, I'm going in no particular order here. Let's actually back out for a moment. I'm going to, for me, for defense, I typically prefer Arena 4. People have a tendency to not attack Arena 4 defensive players as much as Arena 3, just because for Arena 3 there are walls and people like the double lane, and you have pestos and stuff. But for Arena 4 on defense, one of the most common team formations would be something like this. So you would run a Tasi, Talene, Damian core, and then the remaining 2 heroes are somewhat flex. Some people actually with this team are bringing in Satrana. The rank 1 player on my standard arena is running something like this, and I have seen this a lot on the Pioneer server, where you would do something like this. So you would basically have like this, and then Tasi is the ideal hero to have Pyre of Renewal on. Satrana is surprisingly tanky because as part of her kit she has damage reduction, right? And the longer the fight goes, the more of the flames that get sparks, I think it's called, that get spread on the enemies. Oh, and then for the 5th hero, you could either run Cyran or Bonnie. So this would actually be quite a common archetype here. This might be the most common archetype. Yes, so you could run Bonnie here, you could run Cyran here, very powerful. There is, oh heck, you could even run Athalia here, because Athalia does have some, this would be like a true immortal team. You could either run Satrana here or you could run Bonnie, because essentially what you're doing is you're stalling the enemies out, right? Because you have Talene reviving, Tasi reviving, Damian reviving, and then you have Athalia persisting, and then as the fight goes on, you have heroes that can provide debuffs like Bonnie and Satrana that eventually, if the battle gets drawn out long enough, the opponent will just vaporize, right? But for those who don't have Athalia, this would be the more common archetype. Okay, is there anything else to mention? To a lesser extent, and this is more if you are on a brand new server and trying to crack into the arena or into champions, a lot of map formations are like this, because unless you are a whale, you kind of want to open up your options as much as possible. You don't want to close yourself off to like walls or combat tricks that the enemies can do. Enemy whales can do. So this would be like an Eironn Ulmus Damian shell with Cyran and Bonnie. This is quite powerful. I saw a lot of this in the upper echelons of the new VN server when I was playing my VN account. So it would be something like this, and then you would run like Bonnie and Cyran. This was incredibly oppressive, very obnoxious. Alternatively, what you can do, I've seen this as well, is just take the Damian out and just delete the enemy. So you would do something like this, and the reason why you would run Hugin instead of Damian is because you want to bait the opposing Lily Mays. Although actually it was more something like this. So it was like that, and then you would have the twins. I saw this a lot in the top 20 back in the day. So you would do something like this, right? Because your Hugin is a light bearer, just like Cyran. Your Hugin will bait the opposing Lily May because of the initial energy that Hugin starts off with, and then you need a sub DPS like Bonnie. Yeah, and actually the tank is incredibly flex. I've seen Ulmus, I've seen Thoran, and I have seen Phraesto. Yes, yeah, and you would do something like that. So anyways, I think that pretty much wraps it up with all those teams. Yes, I think I covered everything. So guys, thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, or if you want me to say cook up a team for your particular account, I do live stream on Twitch quite often, so you can follow me there as well in order to catch me live, and I can cook team formations as well for you. If there's any standard arena teams that I missed, please let me know in the comment section below. I'm always open to learning about more archetypes. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.